This podcast is part of the Some Buddies Network. You're never alone when you've got some buddies.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today, don't get it twisted. Well, actually, do get it twisted, because we are talking about the twisted world of Marge Simpson. But of course, I'm not doing this alone. Joining me, as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
You know, no matter how hard I tell him to do it himself, he always wants a partner. So I am here yet again to talk about The Simpsons, but we might not be alone today. So I better go ahead and throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the moon money himself. It is Miles.
If Richie and I are the knotted bread that is the base of the pretzel, today we have brought the salt in the form of local Dallas comedian Jay Reed. Jay performs improv sketch, music, all sorts of cool stuff. I met him through Dallas Comedy House, like so many of our previous guests. Welcome to the show, Jay Reed. How are you doing today, Jay?
Oh, good.
Welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I love The Simpsons.
I'm glad that you do. That's usually one of the prerequisites for having a guest on the show, actually. Very, very few things we require of our guests, but that is pretty much it right there. So let's go ahead and talk about it a little bit. Tell us about your history with The Simpsons. Like, when did it come into your life? What does it mean to you?
I mean, like, I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons for a really long time, but I still grew up and it was still, like, everywhere. So I, like, kinda knew about it. And then whenever the movie came out, my brother and I, like, started watching it, and at some point we were in New York, and our grandfather had given us some money to go to, like, Borders Books. That'll date this. And
you already dated us by not watching The Simpsons until the movie came out, for what it's
Yeah,
worth. So don't worry, it's fine.
But he was like, "Oh man, this is our chance. We can get whatever we want here." And so he ended up picking out The Simpsons season 8, which is this season, and that was like we ended up watching, like, pretty much every episode for, like, the first 500 or something. But, like, this was the season that we watched the most, just because we had it.
Makes sense. But
yeah, it was a very formative experience, I would say.
That's a great season to randomly pick up to buy it. Was it the cheapest one or something that day? That's just a really good pick.
I think at the time it was the most recent one that was released. That's probably why my brother chose it, but I'm not really sure. I'd only seen a couple episodes by that point.
You were just along for the ride, but what a stop to jump on the train, man, because season 8 is widely considered to be the greatest season in the show's history. It's of course a topic of debate amongst fans, but 8 is always in the conversation.
Oh yeah, like, I would say, like, I'm not, this isn't controversial, but, like, seasons, like, 4 through 8, to me, are unassailable.
Whoa, dude. If you're going to come on the podcast, you can't say things that are going to cause a controversy amongst our listeners.
I'm going to say it, you guys. I'm going to say it.
I told you that where anything goes here, but I mean, you got to have a little bit of respect for just common decency, Jay.
No, I'm going to say it.
What about season 27? Come on now.
Well, hey, season 27 had probably Homer, like, falling into something. I don't know. But
falling in or around something, you know. He probably says dough once or twice.
I don't have it right in front of me. What year did the Simpsons movie come out? I feel like I should know that.
2007.
2007. Fascinating, dude. Fascinating. So you started watching this show a good 18 years after it debuted. Like, the show could legally smoke and gamble by the time you ever gave it the time of day, which is just fascinating. And, of course, it's largely to do with the fact that you are younger than we are. And as you also mentioned, it seems like there's the households that were very anti The Simpsons, the households that were very pro Simpsons, and then the households that were just completely oblivious of like, oh, it's a cartoon, it's fine type of thing. Coming from the parents not letting you watch it is always tough, but probably made the fruit that much sweeter when you finally got a taste. Am I right?
Oh yeah, like the first one I ever saw, I believe, was the I think it was called Flaming Moes. It was the one with the flaming Moes.
Oh, I think I've heard of that. Yeah,
that's called the Flaming Homer. Get it right.
Dude, so Jay, I'll just say it. You're a really funny guy, man. You're one of my favorite people to watch perform comedy. Absolutely, just you're just you have a. I was going to say a funny look about you. That meant like I didn't mean that as an insult. I really don't. Like as those words were escaping my mouth, I realized that's not the message I was trying to portray. But honestly, dude, you just radiate funny is really what I'm trying to say. And how do you feel like The Simpsons formed or influenced, or do you feel like The Simpsons formed or influenced your sense of humor?
First of all, thank you. But I guess it just, I don't know. It was the first, like, non-children's show I saw, I think. And
right on.
Really, just what got me was there were so many stupid, like, on the fringes, like, side jokes in the show that I really appreciated. Like, they just threw in as much as they could into each episode.
Well, and especially when you got a season like season 8 on DVD, and it's the only season you have, I assume there's a lot of rewatching and catching these jokes that would otherwise slip by on maybe a first, a second, or even a third viewing.
Oh, there's so many weird, like, things that I find myself quoting in my head that are not even, like, they're not even, like, jokes. They're just, like, random lines of dialogue. I don't know. But yeah, I watched this a lot.
As far as random lines of dialogue go, I'm sure it's because of this podcast, and I absolutely love it, so it's fine. But I have random people say the weirdest, out of context, like Simpsons quotes to me, like every day. It's bizarre, actually, because something mundane will happen, and it'll be like, oh yeah, that reminds me of that time that like the Simpsons had a fruit bowl. Like, what?
I've been doing that a lot too since we've been doing the show. Like Miles and I were talking before we started recording, but I'm sure somebody will bring up a 24-hour reference at some point today, and I will go, "You have 12 hours."
Oh my god!
It's gonna happen.
Just to prove you're serious.
Yeah. That is one of my favorite lines in this episode. Like, this episode has a lot of really good. There's one line in particular, when we get to it, that Jack Lemmon has that, like, is so brilliant to me.
Not bread?
No. But that's good too.
That one's just funny, not brilliant.
So actually, I think you may have just kind of already stumbled onto this answer, but I was going to ask you specifically, when I asked you to be on the show, I asked you to give me a few episodes to choose from, and of course you had the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie show, because everybody had that episode on their list, but you were the only person that put this episode on their request list, and I was just wondering, what was it that specifically drew you to this episode?
Well, I mean, partially because it was the only one that stood out to me that wasn't like I realized when I put my, like, wish list together that it was like, oh, these are just the ones that everybody is gonna pick.
Sure.
'Cause there are so many, like, just short list greatest Simpsons episodes in this season. But this one, it stood out to me partially because it's not as, I was more likely to get on it, but...
Fair. Totally fair.
But also,
good foresight.
I mean, it's just a really good Marge episode, and I really like any episodes where she's, where she gets to play sort of the, straight character in an absurd world.
Sure. That's something I'm actually glad you brought up Marge specifically. I was very excited that you put this episode on the list for two reasons. One, again, you were the only one to do so, and anytime I see that when I'm putting together my guest list, I tend to draw towards those episodes just because I'm always curious to see why one that wasn't like the every episode that impresses everyone like kind of made an impression. But also... the Marge episodes are kind of fascinating from this podcast perspective, just in the sense that Richie and I both as kids would pretty lowly rate both, honestly, the Marge-centric episodes and the Lisa-centric episodes.
Same.
And then as reviewing them, or as we're reviewing them for the podcast and kind of watching them through a slightly more mature, I wouldn't say a mature lens, but a slightly more mature lens.
Right.
By mature, he means we're older than we were when
that's
we were
really, yeah, we have physically aged. But at the same time, I think that we appreciate them more rewatching them. And they often have a lot of the roots. I mean, they're still very, very funny because they're written by Simpsons writers, but
Right.
a lot of times the Marge episodes actually have a lot of the heart aspects in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
Like this one, for example, Homer is so supportive.
Yeah.
And it's almost out of character how supportive he really is.
Yeah, that's another reason why I picked it, is because it's, like, all of the, like, it gets really insane by the end of it, with, like, the Yakuza and whatever showing up. But it's all grounded in, like, these very wholesome, like, because, like, everything everybody, or at least everything everybody in the family does, is typically, at least in this episode, like, for other people in the family. Like, they're always helping out. And I thought that was sweet.
That is very sweet. And again, like with characters like Homer and Bart, it's often, me, almost to the point that it's a punchline in a lot of the episodes. But, like, we'll definitely talk about it because I have some notes from the commentary. Like when Homer, though, is like riling up the crew at the power plant. Like, that's so wonderful. Which I just said the commentary, so we'll dive into that real quick. The commentary on this one was actually pretty light. Usually there's a pretty large number of people. This one only featured Josh Weinstein, one of the showrunners, Chuck Sheets, who was the writer of the episode, who also was the writer for the episode director, but for the episode Sherry Bobbins, which we'll be talking about with another very special guest soon. And then Matt Groening was also there, as he's there for most of them. But it was just the three gentlemen there to talk about this episode.
Yeah.
Which the Twisted World of Marge Simpson originally aired on January 19th, 1997. It did have a chalk gag of "I am not licensed to do anything." And I actually really dug the couch gag. It was kind of a play on the game Whack-A-Mole, where all the Simpsons characters were like popping out of random holes and whatnot. It was fun.
And fun fact, the music that's playing in the background is the same, like, carnival music when Homer was wanting to go to clown college and he was, like, imagining all his family as clowns. It's that same music.
Badass. That's awesome.
And fun fact, Homer's head's the only one that gets whacked.
Oh, actually is just very appropriate. That makes sense.
Yep.
So the episode actually opens at the Municipal House of Pancakes, where we see a meeting of the Springfield Investorettes, which includes Maud Flanders, Luann Van Houten, Agnes Skinner. I just went kind of Canadian on Houghton there, but whatever. Helen Lovejoy.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that.
We hung out with the damn derailers too long last time. They rubbed off on me. But Helen Lovejoy, Edna Krabappel, and of course Marge.
What's Marge's last name?
They're not. Marge isn't impressed by pancakes, is what the script says. I'm not familiar with the character otherwise.
Oh, okay.
They're explaining a chart showing Dynaflux Unimatics, and they're up a delicious 7 3/4.
Ooh.
But Helen wants to use their profits to invest into high-risk ventures. And of course, first actually they pitch Oklasoft, which is Oklahoma's fastest-growing software company, which is fun. Maud thinks cushions are a good idea because, everyone likes to sit on cushions. And Agnes Skinner, who suggests, children are so fat today. Isn't there some way we could make money off of that?
Probably, Agnes, probably.
Agnes has a few lines in this one, but damn it, they're funny.
It means Lamb of God.
Fun fact on the commentary, Josh Weinstein says that no, it does not, actually. They just thought that sounded funny.
There's a lot in this episode that makes me want to follow the Investorettes around to see what's happening when they're not on screen. I feel like they have a almost Breaking Bad lifestyle in certain parts, which we'll get into at the end of the episode. I want to know what these people are doing when they're not around Marge in this episode.
I mean, they at some point have to reach out to the Yakuza, so definitely they're getting into some shady shit.
How did they do that?
But, of course, in typical Marge fashion, she's a little bit concerned about these high-risk ventures. In fact, she points out that they sound a little risky.
Oh...
Everyone gets mad, though, because Marge always complains, and they actually vote her out, which is kind of cruel. But she does get her $500 back, and they even are willing to give her her pancakes that she ordered in the mail. Yeah. You'll get your pancakes in the mail.
What's funny is Maud actually calls Marge a wet blanket. Even Maud's going after her on that, and it just, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, well, she'll get hers in a few years.
Oh shit, Marge planned the whole thing, and it started from this very moment. The conspiracy threads start right now.
Side
Uh-oh.
job.
It's scary.
Maybe Maud's the one that went after the Yakuza, and so the mob's going to have to fight back. There are connections.
We're going to be the people with the thread or the big ball of yarn and a bunch of pin needles, just connecting dots that aren't there. I can't wait to get in a basement with you guys and follow the threads. That sounded weirdly dirty. I don't know. Moving on.
Yeah, it really did.
Back at the Simpsons home, Marge is telling Homer about what happened, and you can tell she's clearly upset. And she says, "And then they gave me back my $500 investment and kicked me out of the club."
Wait. Back up a bit now. When are the pancakes coming in the mail?
Homer tries to actually comfort her in this moment and explains that she doesn't even need to make money as long as he has his earning power. The family's got nothing to worry about. But then he almost immediately pokes his eye out with a hot dog somehow.
Call work and tell him I won't be in tomorrow.
And in the next scene, we actually see that Marge has decided that she's going to beat those girls at their own game, and she's going to the franchise expo, where we're immediately given one of those jokes that Jay was talking about at the beginning of the show, those ones that you might not catch on your first viewing. The sign for the franchise expo says, "Where you can make all of your non-sexual dreams come true." Marge and the kids are greeted by a robot, actually.
I didn't remember this part.
You didn't remember Investo from the planet Opportuniac?
No, tell me more.
He's inviting the Simpsons into the expo. Marge is pointed out the fact that it's we're trying to, but you're blocking us.
Danger! Danger! Don't forget to pick up pamphlets!
But Bart, who has a solution for everything, decides to pour some cola into the robot's vents, which causes it to collapse to the floor, and Bart just whistles nonchalantly as he walks away.
Well, and the family seems very happy with Bart, too, as they're stepping over the now dead robot.
Sometimes his antics come in very handy.
Mm-hmm.
I had this one, when I saw this, like, rewatching it recently, I got that robot confused with, like, the robot that says, why was I programmed to feel pain?
Oh, yeah.
Like, when I saw Bart pouring it in, I thought he was going to say that, but that was a different episode.
But also a great robot joke.
Yeah. They do robots well. Shit.
So they walk into the expo, and something I'll point out, and they talked a lot about this on the commentary, you're surrounded with all of these people giving seminars, and it very much feels like something you might see off of a, like, as seen on TV sort of ad, but all of these are actually based on real-life products or real-life, like, get-rich-quick schemes that were actually presented at these expos in real life. So the Simpsons did their homework to try to make this as realistic as possible. And actually, when we get a little bit further into the episode, Josh Weinstein even feels that they may have gone too far with the realism and forgot some of the fun aspects. But nonetheless, all of these expo exhibits are based on real life products.
I mean, one of my favorite things about The Simpsons is they do, like, hucksters really well.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Like, there's a good chance that if there's a guest character, they are some sort of con man.
Yeah, trying to take advantage of the town.
Yeah. And usually it's Phil Hartman, which I was surprised he wasn't, like, one of them in this episode.
That's actually a really good point, yeah, because, I mean, like, he's done a lot of voices that come in, but, like, the first one that has to come to mind is, of course, the monorail.
Right, yeah. The monorail and, like, Lionel Hutz, and, like, he played, like, a used car salesman in season 1. And, like, he does that kind of character really frequently. But
that kind of schmoozy, like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, very, sleazy, snake oil.
Yeah, very sleazy. That's another great word for it. And, and Homer, of course, is a perfect, like, pairing with that because he's so susceptible to being tricked.
Yeah, and this, like, I mean, they're still, like, this is a great, I guess, showcase because they also have Hank Azaria and Harry Shearer, who are also, like, super great at that kind of character. Because, like, Harry Shearer, always sounds like he's some announcer on the radio.
Yeah, he's almost like doing like a product placement ad at times.
Yeah.
And like I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure Hank Azaria does like the wise guy, and he's also kind of got that same kind of like, I don't know, like heavy dripping in sarcasm, and it totally works.
Yeah.
I do really enjoy this little presentation, and I particularly love how Marge reacts to it, because we get the host for a product of Picture Perfect. Now, folks, I don't want to alarm you, but scientists say 40% of America's pictures are hanging crooked. Yup, it's true, and I hear you asking, well, who the hell's gonna straighten out all these artistic abomination? Your friends? Your neighbors? Those fat cats at Washington? Good luck. Hey, you know, maybe no one will notice. Maybe the problem will just fix itself.
Now you're the one who's being naive.
Okay, fair enough. I just love that interaction so much where Marge is for once the one that's kind of like on the hook. And I think she's emotionally damaged at this point from her interactions at the very top of the show. You can tell she's been hurt by her friends and she's questioning herself. So she's wanting to buy in on something. She's there to be sold to.
She should have bought in on that moon money with Homer.
Oh, I forgot he had a great one too. The guy's like, if you go up to moon, make sure you bring some back, some of that green moon money for me.
Royce McCutcheon.
No deal, McCutcheon. That moon money is mine. I love that we find out this guy's pitch for the picture perfect would just be some gloves, specifically a pair of straightening gloves, a canister of wall lubricant, and a booklet of the most commonly asked questions you will ever hear on this job, including, who are you and what are you doing here? Jay, that joke right there, honestly, very much just reminded me of, like, your sense of humor and, like, a way that I love. Like, we'll be having a conversation. Sometimes I hate it. I'll be real, but only because you're so goddamn good at it. But I love how, like, we'll be having a conversation and you're very good at finding, like, another way to take things in a very funny way. And this is just so on the nose and feels like a joke that you would make, frankly.
It's one of my favorite, it's one of my favorite jokes in the episode because it's Harry Shearer, and he did a similar kind of joke in the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie show, where he's like, Lisa's like, oh, that mirror just sneezed, and he's like, oh no, that's just a dusty old mirror. Sometimes it sounds like it's creaking or talking softly.
That's a tease for a future episode there.
And then he like winks at the mirror. But yeah.
And I'm sure there's like a cheesy sound effect that goes with a wink. Ding. But Marge is starting to have doubts if she's even cut out for this world of business. And then, of course, she turns around and just to make things worse, her former business partners are at the expo themselves, and they have this really funny exchange where everybody says hello, but Marge can't remember Agnes's name. Richie did this earlier, but it was, oh, my name is Agnes. You know it's Agnes. It means Lamb of God.
It means Lamb of God.
Marge apologizes, but what's funny about this scene is Marge doesn't say hello to Maude, but Maude doesn't seem to mind. They just ignore each other.
Maybe she was already dead.
It's like the Sixth Sense, and she's just there. We can see her, but they can't.
Something that I found odd is Luann is not with the group until they sign with the pita place, and then they start eating it, and then she just walks up in the background and starts eating the pitas, but she's gone up until that point, so I don't know if they, like, forgot about her and had to, like, draw her in at one point, or if she just must be wandering looking somewhere else.
What, you never have to go to the bathroom, Richie?
Maybe she came straight from work.
One of the next little encounters we get, it's just its own little side joke, but it's honestly one of my favorite sequences in this episode, is where Homer is talking to Disco Stew at the Can't Stop the Learnin' Disco Academies. Disco Stew is there to point out, he has charts and everything. Did you know that disco record sales were up 400% for the year ending in 1976? If these trends continue, and you see he kicks up his platform shoes up on the desk, and they have dead goldfish in them.
Your fish are dead.
Yeah, I know. I can't get them out of there.
Oh. They've been dead
Which
a long
makes sense, because
time.
those were a real thing, and like I don't know how they worked, but I would imagine it'd be hard to like access the tank. And this is where we actually kind of get to the real meat of this expo. Yeah, there it is. We see that the Investorettes are looking at the Fleta Pita franchise, but they do have some concerns. Pita? Well, I don't know about food from the Middle East. Isn't that whole area a little iffy?
Hey, I'm no geographer. You and I? Why don't we call it pocket bread, huh?
What's tahini?
Flavor sauce.
And falafel?
Crunch patties.
So we'd be selling foreign...
Specialty foods. Here, try a Ben Franklin. God.
And they decide it's good until we see the chef poke his head out of the Fleta Pita truck. And what's actually kind of interesting about this character, he kind of rambles in what we assume is a Middle Eastern language, unless you speak it, in which case I'm sure it's way wrong. But either way, this is actually an early design model for the character that would go on to be used in the Homer or the Simpsons Go to New York episode as the Klob Kalash guy. Yeah.
Klob Kalash.
Yeah, that's actually the design that they used when they went on to make that character.
I think that's a little more toony than Tabula and Razimi Kebab.
And for what it's worth, I just to specify, apparently the language that he was cursing in was Hindi.
Yes, that's what I saw as well, but I am uncertain of that.
I just read that on the script. I don't know if that's accurate or not, and I don't know if his Hindi was accurate or not. I have no way of knowing.
I mean, he said kebab, so...
I'm sorry, I didn't learn Hindi to verify the accuracy of this episode, guys.
He didn't learn Hindi. He's speaking Canadian. I mean, I don't know what's happening to him in this one.
Yeah, so this whole show's falling apart.
I learned it for nothing? Great. Jeez.
I love how the hostess also goes, that's our chef, Christopher.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
He closes the window on him.
It looks like they are going to buy into Fleta Pita, and Marge gets mad. And I mean, rightfully so, because I mean, look at them. They've jumped on the one franchise I might possibly have considered thinking about becoming interested in. So dedicated, Marge. She was clearly had her finger on the trigger on that one.
Well, you can't be mad at the investorettes for this, though, because
they
said that Marge didn't want to go in on that Mexican wrestler they had, El Bombastico, or whoever it was that actually was like apparently really successful, and they made a bunch of money. So you can't get mad if Marge is always like, I don't want to do this, and everyone else is gung-ho about it. Then, okay.
Wrestling is always the smart choice, Richie. Remember that in the future. But this is where we have a little bit of a turning of events occur, because Marge is at the point where she looks like she's about to throw in the towel, but then she hears a voice coming from the sidelines, and what was it? Lost in a sea of flashy gimmicks and empty promises, God tossed me a life preserver, a tasty golden brown life preserver. And we look up and see a pretzel cart, and Marge gives it a try. This is where you get the corny joke. This character, Frank, points out when Marge says it's not bad, he says, it's not only not bad, it's not bread. Get it? Not bread? You get it, see? Because the bread's tied in knots. It's more of a visual thing, I guess. I don't know.
I got it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I like before that when he's referencing, well, that was the old me, which was ironically the young me. Because I used to say that all the time many years ago. I'm probably going to start saying it again now.
That is actually a really fun line.
Yeah.
But Frank actually pretty much puts a sell job on Marge. I mean, he seems like a pretty kindly old guy. And actually, his character was based off of Jack Lemmon's portrayal of Shelley Levine in the movie Glengarry Glen Ross in 1992, which I have not seen, to be honest.
Have you seen The Boss Baby?
No, I have not seen Boss Baby.
Okay, then never mind.
I've seen both of those movies.
Oh, share your insight on how Boss Baby is connected.
Boss Baby is sort of the Glen Ross of animated movies.
Fascinating.
In that
Did they put that on the box art? Fair.
And they also do a great cookies are for closers bit.
They do that, yes.
Yeah, they do.
They do that?
Yeah, nice. And it may sound like I'm shitting on Boss Baby. I'm not. It's a surprisingly great film. Anyways, enough about Boss Baby. Glen Ross. This guy's like Gil Gunderson.
Yeah, actually, you're at 100% there. They also point out that Gil's character, which has not made the show yet, was also inspired by this same character in the same movie.
I saw Glengarry Glen Ross back when I used to work at Blockbuster because this movie was free to rent the 6 months I worked there in high school, and I was in theater, and my teacher talked about the movie a lot based on a play, so eventually I was like, oh, all these famous people are in it, so I want to watch the movie, and don't really remember a whole lot about the movie. But, I mean, it's got freaking Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon, Alec Baldwin, Alan Arkin, Ed Harris, Kevin Spacey, Jonathan Pryce. I mean,
Jack Lemmon
cast. Yeah. Thank you.
And this character, again, inspired by Jack Lemmon in that movie. After Marge goes ahead and invests, which I thought was funny, it doesn't take much before Marge is like, shut up and take my $500. And then she starts asking questions like, where's my territory? And Frank gives a speech that was actually inspired by the Grapes of Wrath. Or by the book, excuse me, the John Steinbeck novel, Grapes of Wrath. And it's, your territory? Well, let me tell you, wherever a young mother is ignorant of what to feed her baby, you'll be there. Wherever nacho penetration is less than total, you'll be there. Wherever a Bavarian is not quite full, you'll be there.
Don't forget fat people. They can't stop eating.
And of course, on cue, Homer walks by and says, pretzels. And that actually brings us to the end of Act 1. We did miss, as was pointed out a moment ago, that Bart joins the
The fleet of
Investorettes. Yeah, the fleet of PETA Investorettes. He jumps out and like joins their celebration, even though he's clearly not involved with the organization.
The hostess says his name, which means that his name was given to her to say.
He had to have given her like a card or something, yeah. But that actually brings us to the end of our first act. We're going to go ahead and move right on into Act 2, and we see it begins with Marge back in the kitchen of the Simpsons home, trying to prepare for her pretzel wagon business by watching the video cassette guide in the VCR, which is just a phrase that makes millennials confused if they've never heard of that before. I am a millennial, so I don't know why.
I am too.
Whatever the next one is. Gen Z. Yeah, we just barely make the cut, but we're in there, man. But yeah, VCR dates the show. It was like 97 at the time, right? Whatever. I love this video so much. I think it's really perfect and fitting for this character, which we only get a really limited amount of screen time, to be fair, but it makes a fun impact. And we can see that he's setting up his own videotape and like walking back to his desk, but he leaves the part where he's like setting it all up in and then still tries to act like he's surprised as he's interrupted. Like, oh, hello there. Didn't see you.
He's like looking through his papers for like half a second, then looks back.
Totally sold it.
This video is the highlight of the episode for me. In so many ways.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I love jokes about, like, really shoddy production work. Because it's like...
That's why you listen to our show. That makes sense.
But, like, I love that detail of him, like, setting up the camera. And, like... Yeah, not knowing how to cut that part out.
It is really fun, like, just how shoddy and, like, shitty the quality is, for sure. Absolutely. But we kind of get this kind of voiceover sort of situation where we can hear the instructions of the tape as we see Marge preparing it. Start by setting up an office in your basement or garage. Hang up, or I love the line, a automatic garage door opener will make you feel like you're working in the future, or something like that.
And then Ned's walking by trying to wave at Homer, and he's closing the door, and Ned keeps bending down, trying to wave inside the garage.
And Marge, of course, also has to complete her office with a motivational cat hanging from a line picture that says, hang in there.
Hang in there, baby.
Baby, yeah, it's like they had to add that extra word for copyright issues.
That picture of that cat is so wonderful. Like,
I think this is the first time I ever saw that poster before, and because it's in everything. Like every time you watch a movie where someone's struggling, especially if it takes place in the past, you see somebody with that damn poster, and. For the life of me, I'm trying to think of a time I saw it before The Simpsons, but I think I thought The Simpsons created it when I was younger, and then I saw it everywhere going, oh, crap.
Simpsons did it, and even they admit it was in like 1968.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
My favorite part of the video is, for me, is this next line here. Next, blanket your community with flyers. A phony ticker tape parade will help you avoid littering laws. And we see that Lisa is wearing a space helmet, waving at the crowd as she sits on a convertible, and they're just plastering flyers everywhere. But fucking Homer has a little tear and says, "Welcome back, Space Girl."
That was Wiggum.
Oh, Wiggum, yeah, I'm so sorry.
The cops fell for it. We're in.
Welcome back, Space Girl.
Now, this next line is my favorite part of the episode. Open your bag of ingredients. Oh, check for millipedes. Oh.
And you can see the bag is just absolutely crawling.
I just love that line so much because on paper it doesn't really, it's just like it's just like a little joke, but the way he delivers it, there's so much history in that. That this has just been a problem that's been plaguing him ever since he got started. And, he was hoping that, maybe this time they wouldn't be there. And, just the dejection in his voice is, I love it.
Well, and back to your point earlier of, the poor video quality, it's he didn't know that he could take another take of this. He had to leave the one in with all the millipedes and him being disgusted. It almost feels like he felt that it was a one shot, he was performing it live, and if it didn't work, it didn't work or whatever. But we see that within a few hours, the Simpsons home is a complete and total mess
with millipedes.
But Homer is actually very closely inspecting all of these pretzels, and he gives them he's actually wearing a official pretzel inspector badge, but it's just handwritten.
And a hat. Hey, to be fair, he's a good judge of food, so I think they made the right choice here.
Well, apparently there is a original cut scene that didn't make the final episode that he actually gave Maggie's pretzel a thumbs down, which is actually apparently why her expression is how it is in the scene, but they decided to get rid of that.
A little too dark for him?
Or maybe just time, I have no idea.
Don't demean the baby's pretzel making ability.
They didn't want her magical wrath. The pretzel wagon business is finally up and running, and Marge is ready to start selling. And this was something we talked about earlier, where the support of the family, even Lisa's support in the scene we talked about a moment ago, that's actually borderline out of character for Lisa too.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that she'd be willing to lie to the community in the way that she did, even to help her family.
I mean, she's lied to the community about Jebediah Springfield.
That's true for the greater good, I suppose.
The greater good.
But then Homer is just more supportive than we'd ever seen him in the past, in my opinion. I can't think of a single other episode in which Homer has been this helpful for Marge. And he actually starts to kind of ruffle up the group to notice the pretzel wagon. Hey, what's all that commotion outside? Why, it's one of those pretzel wagons the movie stars are always talking about.
Here? Our plant?
That's right, Lenny. Let's all give in to deliciousness, the pretzel wagon way. And he's just such a spokesperson.
Oh yeah, Homer's right.
That is a fantastic line, and according to the DVD commentary, that line was actually improvised by Dan Castellaneta during the take.
For those that don't know what we're talking about, as the crowd of people at the plant are cheering, Homer is the one that says, "Yeah, Homer's right."
Thank you for pointing that out. You're totally correct to do so. I forget we have to paint the picture sometimes. What, you guys didn't do your homework and watch the episode?
I've seen The Simpsons
before. He's really familiar with season 8.
Did you notice, too, in the next scene when they're outside lining up for the pretzel wagon, that Mindy is actually standing in the line of employees there?
You know, Richie, I'm really glad you brought that up because according to IMDb, Mindy Simmons actually appears twice in this episode, and I did not catch either of them. So there's the first, and did you also catch the second?
I did not see the second.
Interesting. Jay?
I didn't notice.
Yeah, neither did I. It went by me as well, but I did check on IMDb, and apparently she's seen twice, which is interesting.
It might just be like it cuts away to the Fleeta pit. I just messed that Fleeta Pita or the wagon, and then cuts back, and maybe she's in the background still.
Maybe. This next scene is a little bit heartbreaking for Marge, though, because she's excited to start selling her pretzels, which she only sells for $1. But the line is forming, and unfortunately, Lenny is really taking a long time. And even Carl is kind of like trying to hurry him up, like, "Hey, man, hurry! I want my pretzel." But Lenny's doing the let's see. I'll have. Finally, he gets out one pretzel. Marge very politely sells it to him. But then the best part is Carl, who had been urging Lenny to hustle, comes up and does the exact damn same thing.
Let's see. I will have one of your,
And Mr. Burns has a wonderful line here, too, actually.
Come on, while we're young.
At this point, however, Marge has successfully sold 2 pretzels, it would seem, or maybe just the one, actually.
No, yeah, Carl never pays for one.
Yeah, so Marge has made the grand total of $1 minus expenses, and the Fleeta Pita arrives to quite the commotion. They're, really putting on, the Ritz, so to speak, and I love Lenny here. "Wow, check out that van! It looks like it doesn't even need our business."
Hey, let's go.
Marge marches right up to the Fleeta Pita window, though, which is actually pretty bold for Marge. She doesn't usually ruffle a lot of feathers, but when she's been wrong, she speaks up. And she declares that she had this spot first.
"Sorry, dear, just business." Ha!
Well, I guess Macy's and Gimbels learned to live side by side.
"Gimbels is gone, Marge. Long gone. You're Gimbels."
Oh,
freaking Agnes.
That's actually a really fun joke in its own way. I don't know why it's dated correctly. I love it. It's really funny.
What's a Gimbels?
It's a department store that went out of business.
Well, Gimbels is gone, Marge.
Exactly. That's the joke.
And Miles is Gimbels.
And Miles is
what?
As usual. I'm gone. I just explained to you why I'm obsolete. It's because I know what Gimbels is.
There you go.
So Marge is not letting this get her down, and she decides she's going to take the business somewhere else. I mean, it's a mobile business, so surely there's other spots in Springfield that they can successfully sell pretzels. And sure enough, just driving through town, they're actually stopped by Cletus, who's waving them down, saying, "Hey, slow down! I wants to talk to you. I needs 300 pretzels."
You see? A little persistence and patience paid off. That'll be $300.
"Hey, I don't think so. I got me 300 coupons."
Oh, I should have said limit 1 per customer.
"Shoulda but didn't, so hands 'em over. Hey, kids, we're eating dinner tonight. Tiffany, Heather, Cody, Dylan, Dermot, Jordan, Taylor, Brittany, Wesley, Rumor, Scout, Cassidy, Zoe, Chloe, Max, Hunter, Kendall, Caitlin, Noah, Sasha, Morgan, Kyra, Ian, Lauren, Hubert, Phil." Whew. 26 names for the Cletus home, by the way. Most of them were named by popular 90s names at the time, literally just thinking that the idea was they were naming them of, popular names of, kids that were being named that year, hoping that one day they would, see the show and be like, "Hey, that's my name." And that was the whole idea behind it. With the exception of probably Cubert. I don't think that one was common. But also Rumor and Scout were specifically picked because those were Bruce Willis and Demi Moore's kids at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay. See, I always just associate Scout with To Kill a Mockingbird.
I guess it was a very popular kind of gossipy news was the Bruce Willis and Demi Moore relationship. This was pre-Ashton, so, Rumor and Scout were their children at the time.
Man, even the Ashton time's a long time ago at this point. What has our world come to?
Who's Ashton?
Are you punking us? I guess to be fair, it sounds like you were born the year that Punk came out.
The year that what came out?
Exactly. All right.
Oh, Punked!
Yeah,
okay.
You got punked,
Yeah. No, I'm familiar with the show.
That show that Ashton Kutcher hosted?
Yeah.
Or the former Mr. Demi?
Gone too soon.
But yeah, anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Marge is back at home trying to stay motivated, and she's looking at her inspirational poster, Hang in There, Baby. But upon a closer inspection, she realizes that the copyright's from 1968.
Determined or not, that cat must be long dead. That's kind of a downer.
I love dark humor. That's really funny.
Wasn't Mirkin an executive producer on this episode? I believe I saw his name in the credits, so I was trying to find.
I did not catch that, but damn it, that would definitely qualify as a Mirkin moment if he was. I didn't see that he was on this script.
Well, he was on the opening credits. I just saw it a few hours ago.
Very cool. Are you familiar with the showrunners changing with David Mirkin versus Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein?
I'm familiar with Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein.
So David Mirkin was the showrunner on the previous seasons, and he was known for his very dark humor. And so during the podcast, we kept up with a list of what we called Mirkin moments, and it was basically these little jokes like here. Pretty much anytime like a family member talks about killing themselves, there's a really good chance that was David Mirkin.
Ah.
Just in generally speaking.
Funny and the horribly tragic.
For sure. But even with her cat being dead and her knowing it, Marge is still trying to stay on the beat, and she gets a pretty smart idea. She goes to a baseball
From Lisa.
game where she holds... yeah, Lisa does give her the good idea. You're right. She holds an event at the Memorial Baseball Stadium where she's giving away free pretzel wagon pretzels to everyone because she knows just one bite and they'll be hooked. She gets them all passed out just fine, but unfortunately...
the one guy says gracias, and Homer whispers
Bumblebee
to her...
Man?
Homer whispers to her, that means thank you, Marge.
Thanks, Homer.
Hey, you know Spanish.
Again, being supportive. I'm just saying, he's translating, trying to help his wife's business. But the baseball announcer announces that along with the free pretzels, that they are now going to be giving away a 1997 Pontiac Astra wagon to the fan in seat 0001. And it's none other than the wealthiest man in Springfield, Montgomery Burns, who just won himself a free fucking wagon cruiser, which, to be fair, they said was actually a pretty nice car in 1997. Like, it sounds like total junk. They even admitted when they did the commentary, it sounds like total junk when you look back on it. But at the time, it was actually a pretty expensive vehicle, and they took great detail to animate it correctly.
But they also say C. Montgomery Burns over the PA system, which whenever you're giving something away, you just call out the seat number. If you call out the actual name, that means
you would know it's rigged. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So that makes it so much worse.
Oh my!
And then we get Hall of Famer Whitey Ford run out on the field to try to plead with the crowd, who have become very, very upset, and now are actually throwing their pretzels instead of eating them into the field. And
here come the pretzels.
Poor Whitey Ford.
apparently this scene was kind of inspired by a real-life riot that had happened at the Los Angeles Dodgers Stadium in 1995, where something had occurred, a call had occurred that caused the Dodgers to have to forfeit the game, and it just so happened to be on free baseball day. So everybody who came in had gotten like a Dodgers baseball, and they all started chunking them at the umpires on the field when this call was made. So they were recreating that with pretzels.
There's been a few instances in baseball like turned bad like that, like when they used to do like free beer days and stuff like that.
I've heard that there's a lot of places that used to do quarter beer nights or dollar beer nights, things like that, and it would always get out of hand.
Absolutely. Now they charge you 8,500 quarters.
Well put.
For one beer.
That's like one arcade play of Waterworld.
If you don't mess anything up on the way. Good throwback, Miles.
Thanks, man. I that's what I would call it, too.
Yeah.
All right. I love that Bart, too, is being supportive in this episode because Marge is down, and Bart is like, cheer up, Mom. You can't buy publicity like that. Thousands and thousands of people saw your pretzels injuring Whitey Ford.
You could call them Whitey Whackers.
This is a black day for baseball.
But Marge is pretty much down and out. She basically has decided that she's giving up on this pretzel dream that she had. But Homer, again, stepping up to the plate, so to speak, he decides that he's going to help his wife. And there's only one person he knows that can do so, and we see him drive to Frank Orman's house, which is the person that sold Marge the pretzel franchise. And he
good idea, Homer.
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly intelligent on his part. He pulls up to this house that has all of these very, I would say, obnoxious lawn ornaments. But Homer has a line here where he's like, oh, it looks like Mr. Pretzel Man's doing pretty well for himself. Only something seems a little bit off when a woman dressed entirely in black answers the door, and when Homer says he's here to see Mr. Ormond, she says, of course, right this way, and escorts Homer to Mr. Ormond's coffin, because you see, it seems he has passed away.
Oh, I guess I should speak to the executor of his estate.
Oh, he's right over there. They were in the same car.
Mirkin!
Another Mirkin moment. Man, I guess he must have been involved in this episode. And then we see Homer has finally hit his rock bottom. He's turned to a person that he doesn't like to turn to. In fact, he says he's never reached out to him before. It looks like he's praying. But he explains his wife is in her hour of need, and your help could make all of the difference in the world.
Okay.
See, boss? I told you that an ad in the church bulletin would pay off. And it's Fat Tony and his gangster squad who are there to help Marge's business. And that actually brings us to the end of our second act. We're going to go ahead and start off Act 3 the following morning at 5:30 a.m. when the phone rings at the Simpson home, and Marge, who decided to sleep in since she quit the pretzel business, answers the phone very, very sleepily.
No, pretzel wagon's no longer. 300 pretzels? Wait, let me get this down. Meat Packers Union Hall. Batavia, I don't remember what that is, New York. I'll send them right out.
So it seems like it's been a pretzel miracle, and Marge is very excited that she actually wakes up the family and is like, we've got to, get going on pretzels. But we can see all over town that Fat Tony is already keeping up his end of the bargain by taking out all of Marge's competition, including Hans Moleman's hot dog cart, and he explains to him that this is a pretzel town now.
This montage is so beautiful. There are so many lovely moments. My favorite is when I believe it's Legs is trying to like intimidate the Italian restaurant. And so he opens the pizza box, removes that little thing in the middle that keeps the lid up, and then like smashes his hand down on the pizza, and the sauce like splatters all over
That's really good.
faces.
I actually only recently learned that that's what that little white table thing was for. I feel dumb, but apparently the reason we don't see them anymore is because pizza box technology has improved significantly. I was told this by a pizza delivery driver, so...
Oh, the day and age.
I mean, this brings us back to a very good point, that with the Domino's mobile app, you can order fresh handmade pies directly from your iPhone or Android or tablet
Wow,
device.
you're our first guest that came with their own sponsorship.
Patented pizza tracker technology, you can actually track where your pizza is from its way straight from the oven into your beautiful little mouth. Can I request
one of those little white tables from the app?
You could probably put it in special instructions.
Can we also get a new sponsor with this ad?
Yeah, come on, Domino's. Where's that Simpsons money at? We could use it.
I'm not some sellout, okay? I'm not doing this.
He just loves
money.
Domino.
I'm doing it to spread the good word about the Domino's mobile
and their
app.
easy ordering system.
You heard it here first. Don't support local business.
So just go ahead and order your Domino's pizza through the mobile app. Use the promo code BestDarnDiddly. Maybe if enough of you do this, they'll reach out and Google Best Darn Diddly, and if nothing else, we'll get an extra download for it. So yes, thank you so much.
Let's just tag them with that hashtag.
Let's do it. All right, everybody hit at Domino's Pizza when this drops. Let them know.
Hashtag Best Darn Diddly. Don't tell them what it's about.
Don't tell them anything else. Just let them have it. All right, cool. And if legally speaking, I need to, I'm kidding. But wink, wink, kidding, folks. Don't do that. Don't harass Domino's Pizza. That would not be a correct thing to do. Wink. Moving on. Also, don't harass.
You should do it.
God damn it.
I'm a guest. It's okay. I can say it.
Yeah, just put on one of those little masks with the nose and the mustache, and no one recognizes you on the podcast, Jay.
Mm.
I also really love when the mob intimidates the local Girl Scouts for selling their cookies, and they actually drive them out past county lines and drop them off at gunpoint. Oh, so dark. I love it. And Marge is oblivious to all of this. All she knows is that her pretzels are selling like hotcakes, and not the kind that you get in the mail either. She actually is selling a bunch of pretzels to Principal Skinner, and she's actually concerned. Like, are you sure the children will get enough nutrition from these pretzels?
Yes, I am sure. Sure as sure can be.
And we can see Skinner is both, like, being held at gunpoint and, like, being beaten up because he's got injuries. Oh my God!
Got a freaking laser sight on that gun, too.
What happened to your fingers?
I believe it was a boking accident. Is that a missed thing in the script? Did he actually say that? I don't remember.
No, he actually says that. Like,
Okay,
they whisper boating, and then he says boking.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
It's very faint.
I have to go now.
And then we see that the mob's connections run pretty deep because the Fleta Pita investorettes are wondering why they cannot get their ingredients, their falafel fixings, off of the harbor, and it's because their ship's been impounded. We found a couple of barnacles on the hull, and the deck was wet.
That's crazy. And what are all those men doing under my van?
Look, lady, if I was you, I would just leap into the air as I am preparing to do.
Not Wickham's
no
first
other
rodeo.
explanation needed, yeah. But goodness gracious, they use a lot of explosives that close to the harbor. Why? Why? But, it turns out, Richie and Jay, when you get in bed with the Mafia, it's not all fun and games and cuddling.
Except for the beer money, Miles. Homer's walking around with freaking 50s in his pocket. Even Moe's impressed.
That's actually true. At first, Moe's like, your money's no good here. Whoa, wait a second. That looks real.
Your change, sir.
But when Homer goes to the bathroom, he's greeted again by none other than Fat Tony.
Greetings, Homer.
Hey, Fat Tony, are you still with the Mafia?
Yes, I am. Thank you for asking. Now, Homer, as you are no doubt recall, you were the one done a favor by our, how shall I say, Mafia crime syndicate.
Oh, yeah.
Now the time has come for you to do us a favor.
You mean the mob only did me a favor to get something in return? Oh, Fat Tony, I will say good day to you, sir. And Homer walks out in disgust. And for just a moment, Tony actually looks kind of embarrassed, like he's just been socially called out and is feeling bad about the way he's acted, but quickly snaps out of it.
Hey, wait a minute. I love Fat Tony so much because, like, Joe Mantegna really is able to be, like, really intimidating, but also really goofy at the same time.
Yeah, he feels like a very real person. Like Fat Tony, he's obviously, a cartoon and sometimes does cartoonish things, but at the same time, yeah, his intimidation is real. His heart is real. He's a really well done Simpsons character. And I love that Joe Mantegna insists on coming back to do the voice anytime he possibly can. And there's really only been a very few number of times that Fat Tony has appeared, and it was voiced by somebody other than Joe Mantegna.
Yeah, it was many seasons ago.
I thought it was actually pretty recently.
Once, right?
Maybe I'm tripping. I don't know. We have to go back and listen to the podcast. I'm sure we talked about it.
Yeah, we did.
At this point, though, it's going to become apparent to Marge that something is up because she gets a delivery to head to 11905 Dead Weasel Road. But when she gets there, she doesn't see any apartment buildings.
And she's in the middle of the desert.
And she starts getting ran off the road by a limo.
And this isn't when you just type the address on your phone and it took you to where you needed to go either.
No, honestly, I don't even think you'd be able to get on map. I don't think MapQuest was a thing at this point. Maybe Maps Go, but
yeah. My dad always had one of those in the trunk of his car. He needed to pull it out and look at it.
I worked as a delivery driver for a while, and that was the way we had. We'd have to get there in the morning and actually map out our routes. And when there is construction and shit, it was the worst because you didn't know where to go to get around it.
Yeah.
Back in my day, that was when we were still wearing onions
ages.
on the belts, of course. Because that was the style at that time. Marge is very confused and is literally asking what's going on while Fat Tony is reaching into her window and attempting to take the keys out of the ignition, but he's struggling greatly.
Is there a button or a release for these?
You just have to push in as you turn.
Ah.
Yeah, that's it. Marge is so sweet. It's wonderful, but to her own demise in this case. Fat Tony introduces himself as her business partner, and he also informs her that he's entitled to a little part of Marge's profits. Just in the neighborhood of 100%.
You have 24 hours to give us our money, and to show you we're serious, you have 12 hours.
That's a wonderful line that makes no sense.
That seems like a John Swartzwelder line.
That does feel Schwartzwelder-ish, doesn't it?
To me.
If only he would ever get on the commentary to talk about it.
Yeah. Do you think you could get him on an episode of this?
I've been tying little notes to squirrels and releasing them in his neighborhood, hoping that one will, get there. But as far as I know, that's the only actual chance you have to reach him. He's a bit of a recluse.
I did end up, I have his, books.
I thought you were going to say, I have his, email address for a second, and I was going to be like, the fuck? His books are amazing.
That guy does not have an
he doesn't have an email address. Good point. Touché. This is bad news for Homer when Marge finds out, though, because she immediately confronts him. Homer, did you tell the Mafia they could eliminate my competitors with savage beatings and attempted murder?
In those words, yes.
But again, Homer, in a weird way, even though we just heard a pretty graphic description of what he's done, he was doing it in a way that was kind of sweet, because he tells her, I saw you pouring your heart and soul into the business and getting nowhere, and I saw you desperately trying to cram one more salty treat into America's already bloated snack hole, so I did what I could. I did what any loving husband would do. I reached out to some violent mobsters. And that's where Marge actually appreciates the gesture.
It's weirdly, sweet how they kind of come together in this third act here.
Well, and like the other characters we said were kind of out of character to help Marge, I feel like this is a little bit out of character of Marge to so quickly be forgiving. Like, Marge's character would always come around eventually, but I feel like her anger would usually preside over her forgiveness, at least in this moment.
They have more pressing matters, Miles, like the mob.
I mean, the episode's about to end.
Yeah, that's true. There's one page of script left is really what's happening. They don't have any room for her coming around, but thank goodness they only have one Mafia to contend with, right?
I know. If somebody else showed up, holy hell.
Marge's plan of action is to keep doing what they do every day and to
worst plan ever, by the way.
Just keep making pretzels.
The pretzels will protect you against the gun-wielding mobsters.
Hey, they worked against old Whitey back at the baseball game.
Oh, that's true.
Just huck them at the mobsters. So, as the time ticks on, they make more and more pretzels, they get more and more nervous, and when there's a knock at the door, you can see they're visibly shaken, but it was a false alarm, because it was just Grandpa in his boxers. I had that dream again!
Oh, thank God it's only Grandpa.
Slam! And then immediately the door knocks again. There's no reasonable explanation other than, of course, it being Grandpa continuing to knock. But, of course, it's not Grandpa. It's Fat Tony.
Sorry we're late. Could we have the money now?
The answer is no.
I'm afraid I must insist. You see, my wife, she has been most vocal on the subject of the pretzel monies. Where's the money? When are you going to get the money? Why aren't you getting the money now? And so on.
But Marge is standing her ground as her and Homer embrace against these very angry mobsters, but
Homer actually steps up and he goes, she said no, and he shakingly steps in front.
It's great because he's obviously scared, which makes his act even more brave.
Yeah. I mean, it is his fault, but yeah.
Totally. But just then, the Investorettes show up again, and they are pissed that Marge's goon squad has been harassing their business, so they actually got a little bit of help theirself. They reached out to Hiroshi Yukio. Perhaps you've heard of the Yakuza, the Poison Fist of the Pacific Rim, the Japanese Mafia.
They'll kill you 5 times before you hit the ground.
And just then we see that these mobsters prepare to fight, and Marge realizes that they should probably go inside.
But Marge, that little guy hasn't done anything yet. Look at him.
And there's just this little man in a white suit who's standing calmly in the middle of the fight.
He's gonna do something, and you know it's going to be good.
But unfortunately, Marge insists, and the moment we hear the the moment we see the door close, we hear something awesome happen. Aww.
I want to ask if Dan did the voice of the Yakuza, because the hi-ya you hear outside, and then I'm not sure with the guy that comes through the window in a second. Like, I was wondering if it said anything about that.
I'm almost positive
commentary.
I'm almost positive the guy that comes through the window is Hank Azaria, but I don't know for certain. It doesn't actually say. That's just what I heard.
Oh, okay.
But the episode actually comes to an end as we see the Simpsons family sitting at the table, just sitting there calmly as a mob war happens on their front yard.
What's going on outside?
Oh, it's just a mob war. Go back to sleep, honey. And then the little guy we saw earlier in the white suit actually comes flying through the kitchen window. And he very quickly stands, wipes himself, and bows to the Simpsons family.
Forgiveness, please.
And he runs back out to the fight as we fade to the credits. One quick thing here on this last little page, basically, when we were talking about, like, there's only one page left, there's no time. That actually became very problematic for the writers. According to the commentary, they pretty much wrote themselves into a corner, and they spent a good amount of time trying to figure out how to get out of the episode. And it was actually Matt Groening himself who came up with the idea to bring in the Yakuza and end the episode in a mob fight the way that it did. But that, in fact, brings us to the end of the third act as well as the end of the episode. First and foremost, Jay, thank you so much for joining us here today. I had a lot of fun talking to you about The Simpsons, as I always do. It was neat to record it. Is there anything else that you would like to say about this episode or about The Simpsons in general, or just anything at all?
I don't really know if there's anything I can say about The Simpsons that would be like something a million other people haven't already said. So I'll just say my one last controversial opinion. It might have already been stated a little bit earlier, but it bears repeating. Phil Hartman was really good on The Simpsons.
Damn it, why are you trying to piss off so many people, man? I'm never going to have you back if you're going to keep saying these types of things.
Hey, I gave you that Domino's money. I gave that to you. I gave it away.
Where's the domino monies? Why is the money not here yet? Where's all the money? And so on.
And so on. Very cool. Well, again, man, thank you. It was an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's fun.
Richie, is there anything else that you or that book of yours would like to point out?
We went over everything in my guidebook for this week, but I would like to point out that even as a kid at this point, I knew who Jack Lemmon was. My dad had shown me Odd Couple numerous times. I thought it was so cool because he was one of the actors who, I recognized. Obviously, it looks a lot like him, but I recognized his voice as soon as I heard it. And I remember, just being excited about that. And even though he wasn't in a whole lot of the episode, it was still a cool guest starring role for him, I think. And Jay, like you said at the top of the episode, it was cool getting to see Marge get involved in some shenanigans, because she doesn't always get to do that, and anything that ends in a mob/Yakuza fight can't be half bad when it's in animated form, right?
Sounds right to me.
Thank you.
I'll just say one last thing for the commentary. I had teased it earlier on at the beginning of the episode, but Josh Weinstein talks about on the commentary how, in hindsight, he really wishes that they would have picked something different for the businesses. At the time, it was actually just that both the pita business and the pretzel business were somewhat booming. They were actually franchises that were truly taking off in malls and whatnot across America. So they went with that for the sake of realism, but upon reviewing the episode, he thinks that they could have probably had more fun and possibly gotten themselves to a better, more conclusive ending if they had gone with something just a little bit more exciting and a little bit more fun. But at the same time, I think there is the argument to be made that the fact that it is so grounded does also help it to be funny. I think you could see that episode go either way and it would probably still work. But sometimes when they get too crazy with stuff, it can take away from the family humor that occurs just because it's a family sitcom.
Well, yeah, a lot of...
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I feel like the situation itself in the episode was already so heightened with just how, like, truly, like, awful people the Investorettes are. That, like, their relationships and, like, I guess the character interactions are already so crazy that I feel like if it had been like a, you know, like a silly product or something, it might have not been as, it might not have hit as hard. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that you're right. The stakes are already heightened. They didn't need to heighten what the thing was.
Yeah.
It worked to be Pretzels versus PETA, but that
a lot of the Simpsons humor comes from like really simplistic things that get taken to extremes. Like they're known for doing stuff like that out of ordinary situations. So that's exactly why they should have just kept it this way, because it works.
Yeah, totally. And that will do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review Show. Once again, we want to thank you so much for joining us. First off, Jay, is there anything that you would like to plug? Do you want to push your social media or any other things you've got going on in your world?
I guess I could plug my social media, which is on Instagram. My name is Jay Reed Travels the World.
Good content. He posts at least one picture every day.
That's true. It's a travelogue of sort of my worldly travel.
I'd say it's a glimpse of the world through your eyes, and it's fairly true to who you are, I think.
I mean, thank you for noticing that. That's very true. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. Dallas Comedy House opens back up August 16th. Come on down. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Jay will be there. Richie
Bring
won't.
the whole family. I'll be there.
All right, well, make sure you follow Richie at @thewiz_kid23. I am at Mr. Most Days Off. You can follow our show everywhere at Best Darn Diddly. More importantly than that, thank you so much for downloading this week's episode. Please come back again next week when we're going to be discussing the episode Mountain of Madness.
And look, if we were you, we would just be prepared to leap into the air as we are preparing to do.
So until next time, be cromulent to each other.